Thank you so much for doing this. We were just actually talking about the crowd and, obviously dating back to your era and your days being a head coach. What'd you make anytime the home crowd booed your team on home ice?
That's pretty tough. I I think when you have a really good team and you go, well, I was thinking if you go away from home and teams start to cheer for the home team, I always felt that it sort of perked your own guys up too. But at home, I don't remember booing during the game, but maybe the odd period after a tough period or a tough game. But it's, I mean, it's different now, but the fans, their prices are pretty high. They, I think that the players realize, hey, look, we're getting pretty high salaries. I mean, they're paying big money to see us. So I don't really think it should have an effect. I mean, it shouldn't be a problem for the players, really.
Mr. Bowman, thanks for joining us. I got to let you know we really appreciate it. But I wanted to ask a guy of your experience level, this game's changed a lot in the time that since you got started. I wanted to know that what's the best part of the way the game has changed in your tenure, and what is the worst part of how the game's evolved in your mind?
Well, we know how fast it is. I'm not sure the best part of it. Certainly, the players nowadays they work all year round. They compare to me. I get comparables to the way that the Soviet Union ran their teams. I mean, it's not as severe as those players, but the conditioning level of the players today is so much different because they're taking probably a month off at the most, and once it gets through, it's pretty hard to be a player in the NHL without being in top condition now. And I don't know. The only thing I feel different from when I was running teams is I still go to quite a few games up in Tampa. I said in the press box, which is quite high, and I find now it's not as easy to follow. I mean, obviously I'm getting older, but it's not as easy to follow the game. When you watch it on television, they can zoom in into an end zone, and the puck, looks pretty good to you. But when you're sitting upstairs, you got the big rink, 200 by 85, and you're quite a ways up. The puck is small, and sometimes there's six guys around it. Where before, when I was coaching, I mean, I remember when I first started coaching, in training camp, we used to put lines on the ice. We divided it into three. If you're a left winger, you stayed on that side. If you're a right winger, you stay on the other side. I think it's a little bit easier as a fan to watch the game because the puck is small. We know the puck is small. You've tried different ways to make it bigger, which doesn't really work. And but now I can follow the puck because I know when there's a group of players around, that's where the puck is. So it's such a different style of game. When you look at old films, I've talked to some people that are watching games now, and they're saying, boy, the players before were so slow. That's the big observation that they make. Yeah. And I said, well, yeah, but it's all different now. I mean, they didn't train. It wasn't as helter-skelter. That's probably the way I would look at it.
Yeah, it's probably the best way to break it down, too. Speaking of which, Auston Matthews, as you know, Scotty, having an incredible season. What's it been like watching him do this again? And is there anybody, in your time that's comparable to seeing like what an Auston Matthews is doing right now?
Well, I mean, when the puck is on, I happen to get to know a fella in Arizona, Boris. I can't say his last name very well. He started. Actually, he was from Europe. I know he wasn't from Russia, but maybe one from the satellite countries. And I got to know him about 10 years ago. And actually, he does have his green card now because he asked me if I could write a letter for him. But he told me the story of Auston when he was. Everybody knows the story, I'm sure. But when he first was growing up, they only had the one practice rink besides the Coyotes rink, and he's the one that's, I think he might be the first one that divided the rink into two. And it's odd enough because I have a grandson in Chicago that's playing now, just starting up, and he's enjoying it because they're only playing half the rink. He said that he thinks that Auston, like, and it is true, when you see young kids for the first time playing on a big ice surface, there's generally, especially I'm talking when they're 5 and 6 years old, there's generally one or two that skate better than the others. We know that, and the other kids just kind of look around and they watch those guys play. But I think with Auston, and I'm not sure this is what Boris told me, that he, in a contained area, is where he really learned how to do things much quicker. And he said he took to it, and I mean, you know, and as you get older, I mean, the rink expands, but it's the quickness of where he, you know, those good players, they go to the quiet areas. They know when they can move to, when they can get a pass, and he doesn't take any time at all to shoot the puck. Comparable, it's hard to know. I grew up in Montreal and coached the Canadiens later on, but the one that would probably come to me the quickest would be like Mike Bossy. Now, Mike Bossy didn't keep the puck on his stick very, very much, but I don't know if he scored as many long distance shots as Matthews might score, but they found the corners, and they don't. I mean, those good goal scorers, they don't miss the net a lot, and you'll see some goals that you say, well, the goalie should have stopped it, but the shot's on the net.
Mr. Bowman, I wanted to ask you, like Willie Nylander the other night, at a time when the team's trying to buy into the defensive part of the game, he's seen blowing the zone, not stopping and starting, cheating on the offensive side of the puck, and he got benched for a bit there, and for the majority of one period. What was your take as a coach when you had, say, a star player who wasn't buying into a system you're preaching at the time?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult when you get a player of that caliber, and you know, my observation is that when these players are now in their formative years playing either junior or college, if they're really, you know, goal scorers, they're not playing much defense. I mean, that's the way it is. The draft system and the people looking at scoring all the time. And I mean, I've even got people telling me now when they watch Connor Bedard play that he's never on the good side of the puck. But, you know, he's not on a strong team. What they mean by that is that he's never between the puck is never on the other side of where he is and then the goal is, and they're always on the other side. So obviously, if the puck doesn't come to a Nylander in that position, then the other team's going to get a pretty good scoring chance, or at least try to get one. So, I mean, those offensive players, I think in time, as they develop, you know, actually with Toronto, it's so much different because I think whoever did it, I don't know if it was Babcock or was it after him, but like I always felt with young players, if you could use them a little bit on the penalty kill at the right time, and Marner's a good example. I mean, he's not very big, but you know, the Leafs started using him to kill penalties in his first few years, maybe because they weren't as great a team as they are now. But I still think that if you could get the players, I mean, you don't do it all the time. I'm sure, I know Sidney Crosby, when he first started in Pittsburgh, they didn't use him to kill penalties. They had other players to do that. But now that the roster's kind of trimmed a bit, he does kill penalties. And I always felt I mean, Guy Lafleur never killed penalties, so we had so many other good players that we had to use in that era. So it's not. I don't think. I mean, it depends on the player, but I do think if your team isn't really strong at the beginning, you bring these young players in. Like I think like a team like Chicago is a good example. They're not winning many games, and it might be a good idea to get them to kill the odd penalty, and then they'll get to know positional play. And I know they don't want good players to get injured, and you know, killing penalties, you're blocking shots, and if you're doing the right thing. But no, with you got to tolerate it a little bit. I think they catch on. I mean, it takes experience and it takes a few years of setbacks. And hey, if we're going to play you at the right time and late in the game, you got to show us as a coach. You got to show me that you're going to make the right play at the right time. And that, I mean, that's something that young players have to learn.
Accountability is a big word, obviously, that we use in this market. And along those lines, who better than you to ask this? Do you think this Maple Leafs team has it in them with the core four and all that to go all the way and win a Stanley Cup? Obviously, it's been a long time coming for this organization, this fan base, this city.
Well, it's a tough system right now, and I mean I study them pretty well because I see Tampa play, and I know Tampa's not gonna get in the first three spots. So they're gonna have to get in as a wild card. But you know, it's quite a battle now. It looks to me like the Panthers are on a pace right now that they're probably going to get that first spot, and I don't know if they can. I mean, obviously Boston is not that far behind, but you know, whatever way you shake it out, I think Toronto's going to be either 2 or 3. So it's a tough division. There's probably one other division I was looking at that's the same idea. I think it's the one with Dallas and Winnipeg and Colorado. That it's going to be a tough first round. There's no question about it. Toronto's going to, I would think, most likely going to play Boston. Will home ice mean as much? I'm not sure of that because those teams now they win away from home. And that's a tough out. Like Boston, I know the coach pretty well, Jimmy Montgomery. I played football in Montreal with his dad, Jimmy Montgomery Sr., but I got to know Jimmy pretty well. And, you know, he's done a great job there, but they keep bringing in players and they seem to fit in players from other teams that come. I remember him telling me about Zaka when he said, we got this player last year, 2 years ago. He said, boy, he said, I never realized how good a player he is, you know, and now, of course, he's a regular with Boston. But Boston has what I think an underrated core of defensemen. And I really think Swayman and the combination's been really effective. It wasn't effective in the playoffs. We know that last year. And I guess Ullmark, they're not sure if he was injured or not. But when you go with the 1-2 system, but I do know people that studied the Bruins quite a bit, and they really regard Swayman as a really good young goalie, especially in the crease area. He doesn't give up a lot of sloppy kind of goals. He seems to be able to get the puck at the right time. So, with answering your question, the question mark's going to be if they do play Boston. The defense core of Boston is pretty underrated. I don't think Lindholm. I don't think he played last night, did he? Lindholm?
No.
He's been a good addition to them. Charlie McAvoy, Carlos developed into a really solid type of defenseman that you want on your team, and the goaltending has really been like near the not individually near the top. When you look at the top guys like Hellebuck and those guys, Demko and Shesterkin and Sorokin, but they got a really good. If you look at Boston, they lose some games now, but very seldom do they get blown out because they have a core team that makes it hard to score on, and the Leafs are a team that needs to score. So my question will be how strong the Leaf defense and goaltending is going to be going into the playoffs. And there's still time now to sort that out, I guess, with the trade deadline and also with the Leafs goaltending. I do remember the goalie wall coming in last year in the playoffs and surprising a lot of people, but unfortunately he hasn't had the chance this year to get a lot of experience. So my answer would be it's going to be a question mark about how well the Leafs can play defensively in the playoffs. I think they have enough offense for sure. I mean, people say, well, they don't have a lot of depth offense, but you know, they're a tough team to shut down especially when you have a good power play, the players that are dangerous. So I'd be fearful. The only thing they're going to end up with a good opponent. I kind of eliminated Florida out of it. Maybe I shouldn't because they would pose a real threat to anybody if they played in the first round.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.